Sometimes you just need to build your models. Sometimes you just need to get them out of the boxes and glue the plastic together, throw some paint on it, and then call it a day. Not every kit has to be like the most involved project that you've ever done. That's okay. It's okay if you just want to get it out of the box, melt some plastic together, spray some paint on it, and call it a day. It's also okay if you want to spend the next 6 months of your life working on one project too. But this is not one of those. This is a get it out of the box and finish it kind of kit. Hello everyone, I'm Matt. This is Model Minutes. Welcome back to the workbench. Today I'm going to be building and reviewing the Airfix 1/72 scale Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II. So join me as I just focus on finishing this kit and getting it out of my stash. Let's get it onto the workbench. So for this kit, I had planned on doing it as a starter set build or as a back to basics kind of build, and it was just sort of putting up barriers all the time. It's not a complicated kit, it is a starter set, it does come with paints and things included, but it was just getting to a point where I would just kept building it up in my head and not wanting to do it. There was always some sort of problem, and then one day I was sitting here and I needed a Mojo build. I just needed to build something, and I thought, well, why not just build this? It's designed as a starter set, it's designed to be simple to build, it's designed to be easy, so why not just build this one? And I just thought, well, I'll just build it and do it how I want to do it. Plus also, there are loads of people out there who have built this as starter sets and things, so we'll talk about that a bit later on. But yeah, we'll get into this one and we'll see how my build of this one goes. As usual, I'm going to put a list of the products I used during this build on the screen now. If you fancy having a go at this, it should give you some ideas on what you might want to go and get. You do of course get paints and things included inside the box of this kit, but for this one I'll probably just be doing my own thing. The mold quality on this kit is fairly good, but there are some bits of extra plastic that need to be clipped away, and also the parts need to be removed from the sprue. I did this with my side cutters and then removed any excess plastic using a sanding stick. I'm going to be using Humbrol liquid poly as my cement of choice in this build, purely because I've got it and I need to use it up. I applied the cement using the included paintbrush in the lid, and then started building up the various elements of the kit. As it's a starter set, it's designed almost to snap together, being one of these new starter set kits which are specially designed to be easy to build in the Airfix range. There is a chair that needs to go inside of the cockpit, so this was installed here, and then the vertical tail surfaces were glued into their slots. The fit of the parts of the kit so far are really quite good, almost snapping together. The engine jet exhaust needs to be glued together, and this comes in a couple of components. But I'm not going to glue it into the rear of the aircraft yet, I'm going to leave it off so I can paint it separately. I would however install the little door which goes at the back of the exhaust area. Because this aircraft comes with a in-flight shadow stand, I've decided to display my aircraft in a flying pose. This aircraft has been designed with the option to have wheels raised, wheels lowered, and even the aircraft in a hover mode if you would like to do so. But you need to pick the one you want, because these options are not interchangeable though, and have to be glued in during assembly. So the front fan door and the lower landing gear door were also glued into place, as were the upper doors, hiding the lift fan at the front. As mentioned, there is a shadow stand included in the kit, and this comes in two parts which I simply glued together. Now turning my attention to the cockpit, I am actually using some of the Humbrol 33 matte black which was included in the box. I haven't done any work to clean the plastic or apply a primer, and I found that this paint did struggle to stick. There may be some mold release which is in the way and causing it not to stick to the plastic quite as well as it should, but after a little bit of work it got to a point where I was happy with it. As there is a pilot included, I need to give him a coat of paint as well. This Vallejo gunship green was used as the colour for his flight overall. That Humbrol 33 matte black I used previously was used on his helmet, visor and breathing tubes. Some Tamiya flat flesh was carefully used on his skin. And with that I'm pretty much done with the pilot figure. Nothing too exciting, but just enough to give an impression. There is a small decal which needs to go in the control panel, so to apply it to the model I used some Humbrol decal fix, which I brushed onto the control panel, and with the transfer having been soaked in warm water, it was removed from the backing paper and carefully positioned. The decal fix should help stick it onto this control panel area. I then used some more liquid poly to glue the pilot into place. I'm not going to go nuts detailing this cockpit area, this will do as it's a very simple Mojo build. For the canopy, I decided that I would mask this up, so I applied some masking tape over the entire thing, pushed it down into the edges of the framework, and then with a sharp knife cut along the framework to cut away the masking tape. With that done, I carefully peeled away the excess to reveal the canopy lines. The canopy can then be clipped into place on the aircraft. Airfix have designed this kit so that you don't technically need glue to attach the canopy. And now it's time to prime. It's on my t-shirt. So to prime this kit, I've decided to go for some Tamiya primer. This is the grey version, but it's not quite the right grey for the aircraft to kind of just be in. But what it's going to do is add a key to the surface of the aircraft and help ensure that any layers of paint I apply after this will actually stick to the plastic. For the shadow stand, however, I thought this very cheap can of black gloss paint would do the job. So that's all I did for this, was just spray the entire thing in black gloss. Now, returning to the aircraft, I've actually got this Vallejo paint set, which comes with lots of different shades of grey, and I've actually identified the one which I think is the most appropriate for this aircraft. And that one is a medium gunship grey. I loaded this into my airbrush and added a couple of drops of Humbrol clear gloss varnish. This is going to act a bit like a thinner and prevent any tip dry that I have encountered with model air paints in the past. Also, it should help leave a smooth surface for the paint, so I don't actually have to gloss this before applying the decals in a bit. So this glossy grey colour was then airbrushed over the entire aircraft. Not really messing about, I'm just going to spray the whole thing grey. A couple of thin coats was applied and then it was left to dry. And now I can turn my attention to the decals. So if you've seen the unboxing on this kit, you'll know that the decal sheet was actually missing and I had to contact the spares department to send out a replacement. But they did send out a replacement, which means that I can get them all onto the model. The entire sheet was soaked in warm water to help release them from the backing paper. It's not a massive sheet of decals, so I think that I can do this all in one go. Micro scale, micro set and sol will be my setting solutions at this point in the build. Micro set from the blue bottle is the first one to be used and is brushed onto the areas where the decals are going to go. The decals are then carefully slid off the backing paper and positioned. The micro set having been applied should help soften them into the surface of the plastic. I did find that the decals were quite thin and very fiddly. They kept wanting to sort of fold up on themselves, which was very annoying, and this was actually the worst step of the build. I understand that these are sort of low visibility markings and as a result aren't massive, but for a starter set I would imagine that there are beginners out there who would struggle with this step, particularly given with how they want to fold over. I had to spend quite a lot of time straightening everything out and making sure it was in the right place. So yeah, decals on this one, I wasn't a massive fan of the application. With some patience and perseverance though, I got to the point where I was happy with them, and some micro sol from the red bottle was painted over the top to further soften them into the plastic. And with all those decals now cured, some SMS flat clear lacquer varnish was loaded into the airbrush. This again was quite simply sprayed over the entire aircraft to help dull down the glossy finish that I have previously applied. The aircraft isn't a particularly glossy looking model in real life, and I thought I needed to dull it down. You'll remember that I kept the engine exhaust off the aircraft, and that's because I'm going to apply some gunmetal paint to it. This is the example from Ammo MiG. Again, this was just loaded into the airbrush and simply sprayed over the entire engine exhaust part. When that was dry, it could be glued into place at the rear of the aircraft. The next step was to remove the canopy, as it's not been glued in place as mentioned, it's just been kind of snapped into position, and the masking tape that I had applied was carefully peeled away. When that was done, I could snap it back into position and then reattach the black shadow stand which I painted previously. And that's it! That's as far as I'm going with my Mojo kind of build of the F-35 Lightning. As mentioned, I don't think you always have to build things like to within an inch of their life. I think sometimes you just need to build stuff, get it out of the stash. And to be honest, it's always important, I think, to get like second opinions on how other people have built this. So with that in mind, I would like to just take a minute or two to hand over to some other people who have also built this kit, but in different ways, to see what their thoughts were on it. And then we'll come back and I'll discuss my final thoughts. So I'm going to quickly hand over to Miss Modeler and Man's Model Moments for their thoughts on this kit as well.
The F-35 from Airfix, a really interesting kit. I always view starter sets, at least traditionally, were aircraft that, I don't know, are more simple or just ones that people view as being easier to build. So you get things like the Spitfire, the Red Arrow's Hawk, whereas modern military aircraft tend to be much more hyper-detailed, high part count kits. So for Airfix to go ahead and do this, in line with their strategy of doing airshow favourites as sort of starter sets and general kits, I think is really cool. And I'm excited to see the Eurofighter as a result of that. Now, I built the F-35 when it first came out, and I loved it. Like, it was a really easy to put together kit. There's a lot of customization in there in terms of, you know, being able to have it in the hovering pose or have it in sort of the general, well, not conventional flight mode. The cockpit was really easy to take off and put on. Now, I painted mine with life color paints, which I didn't really know what I was doing, so that's why it looks kind of bad. But the fact that I didn't really know what I was doing with my paints, but then I still managed to get a really good finish on the model, or at least I think it's good considering the struggles I faced. It's just testament to how good the model is. This is one of the best kits Airfix have ever made, in my opinion. Sure, it might not be as detailed as the Tamiya or Italeri kits, but this is definitely one of the nicest F-35s put together. And you can do this in a weekend, in an evening. I really love it, and I can't wait to see Airfix's new releases.
Hi, it's Alex from Man's Model Moments here, and Matt invited me to say a few words about these starter kits. I have to say that my personal experience with all of them has been pretty much exemplary. They've been engineered with beginners in mind, which means they go together really, really easily. So much so that I've done 1-hour challenges on both the Sherman Firefly and the F-35B. I've also spent some more time on the F-35 and done a proper build of it, and it's a great kit not only for beginners but also to practice your skills on. For example, I masked and sprayed all of the ram tape on mine, which did take ages, but because the build was simple, it allowed me to concentrate on that one specific aspect. Now, because of that, I'm actually using the Airfix starter sets in my beginners tutorial series for exactly that reason. Now the F-35 kit isn't the best F-35 kit around. It does take some shortcuts on details, especially around the engine exhaust, but it's not really competing there. Now, these kits are really all about reliable and pain-free builds, and they are superb choices to try things out, both for the beginner and the intermediate, in order to develop your skills.
Thanks very much to both of these guys for sharing their thoughts on how they got on with their versions of the F-35 Lightning. But I think it's now time to finish this video with my own thoughts on it. So as mentioned, a Mojo build, very simple, everything was just sort of glued together, snapped together, painted and done. So everything that I do, I keep a note of it in my modelling journal, which I've written myself. You can get your own copies for your own workbench if you'd like to do so by following the links below. And in here, I have noted that this was a one-day build. Everything you see here was done all within one day. I love the fact that this is a simple kit which you can make quick progress with, and it does have those different flight options. You can have it with its wheels down, you can have it in a hover mode, or you can have it in flight like I did in this video. All in, the basic assembly took about half an hour, and I did mention here about those decals being very thin and wanting to fold over. It's a really nice and quick build, and all in, I have estimated here that maybe there was like 4 hours of work. I think the decals took longer, and the painting, obviously you've got to wait for that to dry, took longer as well. And I have completed this to an absolutely basic standard. But if you keep that in mind, let's say absolutely maximum of 4 hours of work, is this really value for money? So the price of this kit at the time I'm making this video and the time that I bought it was £19.99. So let's call it a penny shy of 20. So for £20 and you finish this in 4 hours, that's £5 an hour that you've effectively spent there. You could ask yourself, with the amount of time you spent working on a project, is it kind of worth that amount of money? I think don't forget as well that you are also getting cartograph transfers, which are printed to a lovely quality, but I did have my struggles with them, not from, you know, a lack of quality, just the fact that they are thin and very fiddly to apply. You do also get some paints and brushes and cement included in the kit as well, which adds further to the value. And you do get a very nicely molded kit with those different flight options and a display stand. So it does certainly have some value, but swinging back to that whole thing about this took me 4 hours, so was that amount of time I spent worth the money that this kit cost me? I suppose each to their own, but this did seem a little bit more expensive. I have spent considerably more time working on projects which have cost considerably less. Don't get me wrong though, this is a very nice model kit and you can make very quick progress with it. I certainly don't really have any complaints about it. For 2023 tooling, it's up to the current standard that we kind of expect from Airfix. And I know we should be expecting some more starter set kind of kits from them very soon. And with that, I'm probably going to call this one here. Thanks so much for Miss Modeler and Man's Model Moments for joining me in this build today. As always, let me know what you thought of my build of this kit and if my review of it was fair. And also I'm open to any other suggestions that you may have for builds you'd like to see on my channel. You can drop that information underneath the video as well. Quick shout out to my Model Club members, whose general support allows me to fuel my modelling addiction and share it with all of you. Massive thanks to these guys on screen, or support the channel in other ways, take a look at the links in the description. The best way to support the channel for free though is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and from me here on the workbench today, I'll see you again very soon. Airfix F-35 build. Nah, that wasn't too bad, was it? Take one. Fantastic. Hello everyone, I'm Matt. The engine exhaust assembly needs... Okay, what's it? It's the engine exhaust, the engine jet. And with that, I'm probably going to call this one here. Once again, thanks to Ms. Modeler and Man Models. Just everything. There we go, back up. Oh yeah, I love it when the camera just decides to do its own thing and just start looking at other stuff. Right, that'll do. That'll do. Right.